Surface area of a cylinder. So as we looked at in the previous lessons, how a cylinder cuts up and makes the net. If we chop that cylinder up, we get this net with two circles on the top and this rectangle in the middle. And remember how I said the length of this rectangle is equal to the circumference of the circle. And the circumference of a circle is 2 times pi times the radius. 2 times pi times the radius is the circumference. And the circumference of the circle is the distance all the way around the outside. And if I cut that cylinder up and I spread that middle part open, then that will create this rectangular shape. So to the left, the net of a cylinder shows all the faces. So I have two circles and one rectangle. We just spoke about this, that the length of the rectangle is the circumference of the circle. So we're going to look at the surface area of this object. So the surface area is 2, because I have two circles, and the area of a circle is pi r squared. So the 2, because there's two circles. Oops. Two circles. That's why I multiply by 2. So if we ever had an instance where we're looking at like a cylinder without the top or a cylinder without the bottom, you wouldn't multiply by 2 if you had a word problem. In this case, we're just looking at the surface area of this entire shape. So 2 pi r squared, that is the area of both the circles, plus 2 pi r, which is the length of this rectangle, times h, which is the height of the rectangle. Okay, so this is the equation or the formula for a surface area of a cylinder. 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. And hopefully the formula makes sense. It's not just something you memorize, it's something you understand. I understand that there's two circles. That's why I'm multiplying 2 pi r squared. I understand that the length of this rectangle is 2 pi r, and the width is h. So I multiply 2 pi r times h. So this will work for any cylinder. Now, let's look at a specific example with specific dimensions. So we have this example here. 1 second. So this example, I have find the surface area. We are going to start with the formula. Again, I said last one, I don't really like formulas, but in this case, it makes sense. There's two circles, 2 pi r squared, plus 2 pi r h. Okay, because I know the two circles and the rectangle in the center. So this case, I have the diameter, d equals 6. That's not the radius. R is the radius. This is not the radius. So the radius is half of the diameter, so that's going to be 3 inches. Okay, the radius goes from the center of the circle to the outside. The diameter goes all the way across. The height is 10. That's fine. Every other piece of information I have, pi, we're just going to use the pi button on our calculator. Sometimes people approximate it to 3.14. I don't often do that because every calculator has a pi button. Let's just use the pi button. It's far more accurate. So the surface area is equal to 2 times pi times the radius squared is 3 squared. You could just write 9 as well, because 3 squared is 9, plus 2 times pi times the radius, which is 3, times the height, which is 10. So I have all the pieces. Pi looks like it should be some kind of variable or something, but again, remember that's just a button on your calculator. It equals a number. It's an irrational number that goes on forever. So now I'm at the point where I basically just use my calculator and figure out these two parts. So I have 2 times pi. See how accurate that is? Way more decimal places. My son can actually, he's memorized this to over 50 decimal places, so I have not. So 2 times pi times 3 squared, which is 9. So that piece is, and we're going to round a little bit. I'm going to use 2 decimal places, so 56.55. Plus, the next piece is 2 times pi times 3 times 10, which is 188. You know what? I'm going to write that one down. Now, if I round this to the nearest hundredth, It's going to bump that 9 up to a 0 because the number next to it is a 5. 5 or greater bumps it up. So that becomes a 0, which bumps that up to a 5. So I get 188.50. And then I just add these two pieces together. So I can even keep that on my calculator and just say plus 56.55 is equal to 245.0. Now that 4, does it go up or down? Or does it go up or stay the same? It goes up because the number next to it is 5 or greater. So we rounding. 245.05. And don't forget your units on this. Remember, they're inches. We're dealing with area, so we have to have inches squared, or square inches. And that is the surface area equals. It's a good idea to keep your work organized. As you can see here, I kept everything organized. I missed the essay there. And at the end, I put a box around my answer just to make it very clear where my answer is, because sometimes your work can be all over the place, but try to keep your work as organized as you can. Okay, one last example here. We're going to find the surface area of this object. Again, it's 2 pi r squared, 2 circles, plus, and both these circles are here, 2 pi r h. This time I'm given the radius. I don't have to divide it by 2 because I'm not given the diameter. If I was looking at the diameter of this object, though, or the circle, the diameter would equal what? Twice the radius, so that's going to be 10 centimeters. But we don't need that. I'm just showing you that so you know what the diameter is. So the surface area is equal to 2 times pi times the radius, which is 5, squared, plus 2 times pi times the radius, 5, times the height, oops, which in this case is 15. I know it doesn't look like the height this time because it's on its side, but we still call it the height. It's still the height of the cylinder if the cylinder was set upright. So surface area is equal to, I know that 5 squared is 25, so I have 2 times pi times 25. 157.08, the 7 bumps up to an 8 because the number next to it is a 9. So 157.08 plus 2 times pi times 5 times 15. So 471.24. The 3 bumps up to a 4 because the number next to it is an 8. So 471.24. Okay, and I add these two values together. Again, I can just leave that number in my calculator. Plus 157.08, which is 628.32, because the 1 will bump up to a 2 because the number next to it is greater than, or 5 or greater. So 628.32. And remember, the units are, in this case, it's centimeters squared. I'm going to put a box around my answer. It's nice and clear what the answer is. That is, thankfully, the last example. So hopefully that helps how to solve for the surface area of a cylinder.